Now to the incredible human catastrophe that is Syria. The first round of peace talks aimed at trying to end the bloody civil war there ended with virtually nothing to show for it. Delegates from the Assad government and the opposition emerged from that conference in Geneva with no signs of any possible ceasefire or even a plan for giving humanitarian aid to all those who are suffering right now. This all comes amid even new accusations that Syria is now stalling on handing over its massive stockpile of chemical weapons. U.S. Ambassador John Bolton, Fox News contributor, former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, and a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, joins us as he does about every time this Sunday. Ambassador, good morning.
Good morning, Eric. Good morning, Jamie.
You know, they say only about 4% of the chemical weapons have been handed over. Is this all going according to plan?
Well, it's all going to the Assad regime's plan. This was entirely predictable. In fact, it was predicted, maybe right here with you on your show. The Syrians used the chemical weapons agreement to buy time, to gain legitimacy, to help them militarily and politically. So the slow motion process of removing the weapons they've declared, and I'd underline the phrase they declared, we still don't know if it's all that they actually have, is just part of the script to take maximum advantage, again, politically and militarily, for the Syrian government from that deal last summer.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry was defending yesterday the U.S. and the administration policy of engagement among criticism. What's gone so wrong?
Well, I think, speaking of the peace negotiations in Geneva, so-called Geneva II, the Syrian delegation there under Foreign Minister Mohammed Muallim did essentially the same thing that they're doing on the chemical weapons. It was a slow-motion stalling game, because at least as of now, the Syrian government's doing better militarily. The opposition coalition is engaged in internecine warfare. They've had lots of casualties between the al-Qaeda affiliates and the other opposition elements. So from the Assad government's perspective, the more this drags out, the better. And again, this was entirely predictable. There's never going to be a negotiation that results in the Assad regime leaving as long as Russia and Iran continue to back Assad, as they have done for the last 3 years, as the Obama administration didn't understand 3 years ago, doesn't understand today.
Well, you say the administration doesn't understand that, but look, the president has said Assad must go. He called for that red line on the use of chemical weapons. So where did this go off the tracks as far as the White House is concerned in dealing with Assad?
Well, I think they've made a lot of mistakes. If they were really serious about removing Assad, they should have moved much more actively, much earlier to back the opposition and back it militarily. That was never going to happen because Obama knew that if he crossed Iran in Syria, he would never get nuclear negotiations. So as a result, we've had 3 years of confusion, equivocations, contradictions, and indecision that leaves us where we are today, just as you started out, with a human tragedy in Syria that continues to grind along.
I mean, 300,000 people are now cut off from humanitarian aid. The Assad regime is dropping barrels with bombs in them from helicopters, just indiscriminately killing people. How can this stop?
Well, you know, just to show how bad the negotiations are and why it's unlikely it will stop, they couldn't even reach agreement in Geneva on a temporary ceasefire for humanitarian purposes in some of the key battle areas, even to get civilians out. I think that reflects the confidence of the Assad regime and the inability of the opposition forces to turn the thing around. This isn't over militarily, but if we come back for another round of Geneva negotiations next month or the month after, it's still not going to make any difference.
Well, what happened, Ambassador, to the famous reset with Russia backing Assad, Russia backing Iran largely, Russia backing Ukraine? I mean, Hillary Clinton, the Secretary of State, met with Sergei Lavrov there on the left with that famous reset button in our relations with Russia. What happened to that?
Well, I think this is part of the Obama administration's increasing legacy of failure in national security affairs. And it's a long list, but dealing with Russia, which, let's face it, is still one of the world's leading nuclear weapon states with enormous petroleum and natural gas reserves, this is a big issue, and they've been wrong from the beginning. I think it will be a stain on the Obama foreign policy record, and it'll be something that Hillary Clinton will have to answer for if she decides to run in 2016.
All right, U.S. Ambassador John Bolton, we will continue with this. Those peace talks supposedly again starting February 10th. We'll see if anything can happen to try and stop this horrendous situation that continues. Ambassador, thank you as always.
Thank you.